Welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast number 640. I'm Tom Cagley, your host today. The idea of communities of practice is thrown around a lot in organizations, often without thinking about the goals of a COP. Why? Organizations are increasingly becoming more diverse and distributed, while at the same time pursuing mechanisms to increase collaboration between groups and consistency of knowledge and practice, hence the rapid growth of COPs. Let's explore the goals of the COP this week in our essay. Also this week, we mark the premiere of Tony Timbol's new column, To Tell a Story. In this week's installment, we begin to explore the nuances of user stories. Tony is a practitioner, consultant, entrepreneur, science fiction author. Tony does it all, and he uses user stories. By the way, if you're interested in Miko Pawlikowski's book, Chaos Engineering, Site Reliability Through Controlled Disruption, link in the show notes, I have discount codes for the listeners of the Software Process and Measurement Cast. Ping me, tcagley at tomcagley.com. I'll share them with you. Communities of Practice by Thomas M. Cagley Jr., Megan E. Cagley. Organizations are increasingly becoming more diverse and distributed, while at the same time pursuing mechanisms to increase collaboration between groups and consistency of knowledge and practice. Communities are one tool organizations use to keep people involved and increase capabilities. The community of practice, COP, is one type of community. We'll explore its first cousin, the community of interest, a little bit later in the series. Organizationally, COPs have three primary goals. They are 1. Synchronizing behavior, 2. Expanding knowledge, and 3. Increase capability or capacity. In order to synchronize behavior, COPs act as a clearinghouse for how a sponsor of the group wants people to act. This might sound nefarious, however, consistent practice is important to many business models. For example, a Scrum COP in an organization might be used to exert peer pressure to get people to follow Scrum as the Scrum Guide defines it. I often see COPs in consulting practices, where consistency across a practice is crucial for sales and delivery. COPs act as a platform to expose the group to new ideas, expanding the envelope. In a classic COP, what the group is exposed to is carefully curated to ensure behavioral boundaries are observed. Experimentation is controlled and practice evolves rather than radically changing. The third goal, increasing capacity, is often seen in COPs that are part of a consulting practice or support an internal resource pool. For example, I recently participated in a Python COP at a multinational organization. The COP's goal was to increase the ability of its participants to deliver value to the organization. The COP events focused on topics that would make the individuals more productive. I spoke on test-driven development. There are often several secondary goals. For example, building a community, identifying new people to convert, and networking with people that can provide support. All of these goals are great, but they're often transitory and sometimes somewhat dangerous. For example, I worked for a firm that started a COP for Scrum Masters. One of the stated goals was to create a network of Scrum Masters within the organization. Wait for it. However, only Scrum Masters from one group were invited. These folks already sat together, ate lunch together, and worked together. There was little that needed to be done to generate a community. The real goal was to ensure synchronization, but the management team was frightened to publish that goal. While most COPs are not nefarious or pursuing disingenuous goals, which would be against the Agile Coaching Code of Ethics next week, goals like networking often wax and wane depending on the influx of new participants or significant changes in the work patterns. COPs are a useful tool for keeping people using a common skill set in a distributed environment. The COP provides a way for people to interact while guiding behavior. Thoughts, comments, all welcome. Please feel free to reach out to us at spamcastinfo@gmail.com or text me at 01-440-668-5717. We look forward to the conversation. Tony Timbol, thank you for bringing your brand new column to the Software Process and Measurement Cast. Tony, you're going to start a column that's going to run monthly, and that you've named this column to tell a story. Any background on why you chose to tell a story?
Well, I think again, thank you, Tom, for having me. Again, I think it's all around the idea that, and I had this conversation the other day with someone in the product planning area, and we came up with the idea, or I communicated the idea that product planning, especially in Agile, is less about design than it is about storytelling. And so being able to be a good storyteller, if you're a product manager or product planner, is really how you can outline a vision and communicate the goal and really outline what the why is, right? Because you talk about you have to define the who and the what, but often the why is really more important in many ways to give people a context for why are we doing this at all.
When we talk about communicating the why and using a story, a little context. Why is that really the role of, the product manager? Why aren't they just specifying things? It's like, I need these 10 features. Why tell a story?
Human beings love stories. And the reason is the way we're wired as far as the brain goes. We need context. We need to place things and recognize patterns. And so stories give us the ability to look at a pattern, recognize it, and determine whether it's useful for us or not. A little bit of the evolutionary reptilian brain idea. So when we say, I want these 10 features, and you go straight into an engineering description of them, the development person obviously can do that, but it won't have as much impact as far as their ability to imagine how to do it if they don't have a context of the story and the why of the story, especially if you look at the Joseph Campbell idea of the myth of the hero. So these stories have to have a beginning and a middle and an end. They have to have a hero on their journey. So each story is a journey of why do we have to do this? What are the obstacles and how can we win and succeed at the end? And so that way that you think of that story paradigm, then you're able to say the story. You know what? We want to, as a website visitor, we have this challenge that we want food. We have to get the food, and we succeed by ordering online to get the food, and you win at the end. And so it's that idea of a successful journey for the product manager and the team and the developers.
I'm still troubled by this whole idea of a story. And the whole idea of stories have been around, whether it's a user story or a story as an epic or Joseph Campbell's, the myth cycle or the hero's journey. That's been around forever. So are there alternatives?
I've thought about that a lot because, we've evolved from the business requirements to program specifications to detailed items. And then the user story came into existence and it became very popular. And a lot of individuals have struggled with it because its simplicity is its challenge, right? You define the who, what, where with the as a role, goal, benefit. And there've been some ideas. Mike Cohn has come up with the job story format. Then you have the Gherkin language, and they all basically do the same thing. They provide a context for interpreting a solution intent, what it is that we want to get done. And so often you think, well, have we outlived the usefulness of a user story in Agile? What will we still be using user stories in the future? And I think not. I think it remains in its simplicity sort of the most basic atomic unit of communication between a business person and a technical person. Where it breaks down is when the business person doesn't communicate the business context of the story, and the story becomes almost too technical, becomes more designy or too large, and then it complicates things. Because what it does is it presumes that the developer or the receiver of the story doesn't understand enough and is literally too stupid or dense to understand the whole context, as opposed to saying, look, I trust you, developer. I trust you, technical person. I'm going to give you a story of what I want. I'm going to let you figure out how to do it and respect your autonomy there. And then we'll have conversations about how you're struggling with the meaning of the story and how you're interpreting it, but I'm going to trust you that you're going to actually get it done. And I'm not going to micromanage your coding through a proxy user story that's really a disguised programming specification.
How do you coach product owners to shift away from that proxy, requirements document and to actually leverage user stories? What's a couple of good techniques?
One of the techniques that I encourage them to think about is a user story should be short. Should not be a lot of words. And so the idea would be, if you think of a standard New York Times newspaper column, 500 to 750 words. Well, a user story is one sentence, literally, when it's really meant of it is 10. Now, there might be supporting descriptions and acceptance criteria and conversations, right? But the base story should be a single sentence and not be a compound sentence. In other words, as a dashboard panel and a extract report, I want to be able to and. So if there's a bunch of conjunctions inside the sentence of the user story and it has a lot of clauses, that user story is too big. So you want to keep the user story to a single sentence, and then you want to keep all the attached conversation acceptance criteria under 250 words. If you can keep it to that succinct size, it forces the product manager or product owner to be very precise with what they want to do or say, and that keeps it down. And so that becomes, again, as I talked about constraining boundaries last time we talked, it becomes an element or a parameter of a constraining boundary formula, which is, hey, we want to keep these things small, so keep your word count down.
Okay, super. Would you do the same thing at an epic?
Yes, because an epic, it describes more broadly a strategic intent as opposed to a tactical intent, and that's okay. And so it can use broad words. It can use words that imply a certain amount of uncertainty, but still enough to say, hey, I want a systems dashboard for health data for my hospital. Well, that's a lot, right? But even though that sentence, it's a single sentence, and it shouldn't be complicated with a bunch of clauses and things like that. So yeah, even for epics, keep it under 250 words. Keep the standard tripart statement into a single sentence without a whole lot of conjunctions.
Or no conjunctions. I stomp on commas and ands with golf shoes, even though I don't play golf. So, but yeah, that's a good reason to have golf shoes. Tony, absolutely fantastic first column. Thank you for bringing to tell a story to the Software Process and Measurement Cast. Tony, before we break, how can people continue the conversation? How would they find you? Why are you an expert on user stories?
So I've been coaching in Agile for quite a bit, and also, as you and I know, we work together. Been in the software business for many years. But yeah, they can get a hold of me on LinkedIn. They can contact me at tony.timbol@agileready.net. Glad to hear from people, and they can ask follow-up questions. So yeah, I've got 2 LinkedIn profiles. One is for my normal sort of day job, and my other profile, if you find it, is for the software product that we launched, the Agile Ready, at beagileready.com. So you can get a hold of me through those 2 different routes.
We'll have all those links and all of that contact information in the show notes. Remember, the Software Process and Measurement Cast is a proud media sponsor of the DevOps Online Summit. DevOps professionals throughout the world come together and share their learnings at the DevOps Online Summit. This coming April 26th through 30th, we're having our 3rd summit. Our goal is to bring together 5,000 DevOps professionals. That's a lot of networking. Link in the show notes to grab a ticket. This week, we continue our reread of Fixing Your Scrum, Practical Solutions to Common Scrum Problems by Ryan Ripley and Todd Miller with Chapter 3, titled Breaking Bad Scrum with a Value-Driven Approach. In the next Software Process and Measurement Cast, the Agile Coaching Code of Ethics takes center stage with Shane Hasty and Craig Smith. Shane and Craig have been leading the effort to craft a useful Agile Coaching Code of Ethics for the past year. The two have helped pull together a diverse set of coaches and then guide that herd of cats in order to create a first draft of the code. If process improvement is a never-ending journey, why do so many people ask, are we there yet?